Welcome to Boss Up Goddess. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and every night I teach you ways to live bigger, better, and bolder. Tonight, I want you to think about being triumphant, not tragic. Now, this stems from my personal experience that I write about in my memoir, God's Answer is No: Lessons from a Spiritual Life. I want you to be triumphant, not tragic, over any particular circumstance in your life that you think might be cause for setting you apart, making you feel less than, making you feel separated from, making you feel inferior, rejected, scorned, whatever that thing is. I want you to declare, I am triumphant, not tragic. Now, those words come from the phrase tragic mulatto. My family is interracial. My mother's Black, Italian. My father was English, French, Native American. I'm also white chocolate. But growing up, Catherine and I, my sister, had no role models of mixed race people. There was no Barack Obama, Derek Jeter, Tiger Woods, Mariah Carey, the long list of mixed race people who now serve as role models for the 9 million Americans who now self-identify as multiracial. That means being part of more than one race. But back in the day, back before there were any prominent mixed race people that we could look up to and say, wow, I can be like them, or they're like me. And even before that, there was a time when people would pass for white if they were light enough, if their skin was white enough. They would live in the white world for economic gain. Some went home to the Black community at night, and others just completely disappeared into the white community and left their Black roots behind. So I'm going to get into all that stuff in a minute. But the term tragic mulatto was born of the person who didn't fit into the white community and was too white to be Black. So too Black to be white and too white to be Black. Therefore scorned, rejected, alienated by both sides, thus tragic. And the word mulatto is the slave era word that means mixed race. So back during that very terrible time of American history, the US Census actually kept track of people's race by down to, I think it was 1/32 of a degree, which is a multiple great grandparent was Black. That makes you Black. It's called the 1-drop rule. If you have 1 drop of Black blood, you're Black, no matter how white you look. So there's a disturbing history about race. It was all political, social, and all about power. But those mindsets, those ideas linger today, and many mixed race people still feel torn between, am I Black? Am I white? Which side do I form an alliance with? Where do I fit in? Do I fit in? So these are questions that I've had throughout my life. I embrace and celebrate being multiracial. I love being different. I love not fitting in, even though it was very difficult as a child and a teenager. So my message is be triumphant, not tragic. Because when Catherine and I grew up and had no role models, we were the only people we knew like ourselves. And then we got to the University of Michigan as English majors, and all the literature about mixed race characters were the tragic mulatto. And we also watched too many times to count the movie from 1959 called Imitation of Life, where it's about a woman who is mixed race. She has a Black mother and she's hiding her mother. She's white. And when people find out her mother's Black and therefore she's Black and they're out, she loses her job, her boyfriend beats her up, and all kinds of other tragic things happen. And then the end is a real tearjerker when her mother dies and she realizes how terrible it's been that she's been trying to hide or deny her mother. So, tragic, mulatto, stereotype was real for many people. But when Karen and I got to college and all the stories we read just kept perpetuating that idea, and we're like, no, we're triumphant. So I went to the University of Michigan undergrad for English, honed my writing skills, was a reporter and editor at the Michigan Daily, fell in love with journalism as a vehicle for change and influence on society. And then I went to Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism and earned a master's in journalism. And while there, I wrote my master's thesis about the history of race mixing, specifically Black and white race mixing in America. And I wrote it from my personal perspective. And that evolved into, I had a part of it published in the New York Times. I was hired by the Detroit News as the race relations reporter. I was interviewed on national media, the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather, Good Morning America Sunday, Black Entertainment Television, BET, multiple shows, NPR. I was on lots and lots of interviews, and I started writing books about the topic. But before I share the books, I'm going to read an excerpt from my memoir, God's Answer is No, Lessons from a Spiritual Life, about writing my thesis at Columbia when I was living in New York City, and the message, because it's about being triumphant, not tragic. And that's the heading of this section. See, it says, I am triumphant, not tragic, okay? So I talk about writing my thesis and how I interviewed people all over the country about it, and then I have an excerpt from my thesis in here. So I'm going to read it to you. Growing up in an interracial family has given me a unique perspective and sensitivity to physically, socially, and politically blur the lines between the races. And I feel it's my place on earth to use that ability to help create more harmonious race relations. In a society where race is either a privilege or a problem, embodying both Black and white sets the stage for personal turmoil and societal scorn. Before biracial and multiracial people can use our intrinsic understanding of two or more races to fight racism, we must understand love ourselves. And as more of us are born and speak out, a trend of self-affirmation and pride is boosting our confidence. For many, that means choosing a life of activism. So for me, that activism has taken the form of the written and spoken word. And therefore, my first novel, White Chocolate, is all about a TV reporter who's on a mission to fight racism using her dual perspective as a mixed race woman. My next book, Dark Secret, is about a woman who's passing for white. She's hiding the fact that she's Black. She's engaged to the son of a wealthy Virginia senator who's very racist. She's hiding the fact that she's Black. She looks white. She's engaged to the son. She's about to get married into this family that has a 300-year-old plantation house where the family once owned people during the slave era. And to research that, I visited plantations on the James River in Virginia. And Virginia is such a beautiful place. It is such a richly historic place. And it's such a horrific historical place because it was a center of the slave trade. And when I visited these plantation houses, creepy, skin crawling, in these beautiful houses, right? And the tourists, and we're on a tour, the tourists are, oh, this is so beautiful. And there's that nostalgia of this like sort of genteel Southern living. but my skin was literally crawling because I was thinking about how Black people were treated and enslaved in these homes. And then you visit the slave quarters that they preserved. You can see, ugh, very disturbing. But I wrote the story where she visits the plantation house of the family and ultimately is at one point living there, and the whispers of the past are haunting her. And it's just, oh my gosh, this book was on the bestseller list for 5 weeks, and really proud of it. But her mother is dying. Her Black mother in Detroit is dying. She needs a kidney transplant. And the only person who's a match is her, Camille, who also lives on the Upper East Side of Manhattan in New York City in a very ritzy townhouse with her fiance. She's just living large, living the glamorous life. Her sister is more brown-skinned and stays close to the mother. She is so enraged that her sister won't save their mother's life, she comes after her. And it sparks a scandal of race, sex, class, politics, because the senator gets involved. You got to read it to see what happens. But my point is that people would ask me, do you ever pass for white? And I say, no, I've been on the Montel Williams show talking about being mixed and Black and Native American and French and English and white, embodying all of the above and celebrating it as such. So I don't pass, but people look at me and they ask, well, you could pass if you wanted to. Well, I don't want to. So anyway, I wrote a book about it though, and it's kind of like Imitation of Life, that movie I told you about from 1959, happening now because the woman is passing. So then I wrote a third novel with mixed race characters, and I wrote it with the actor Billy D. Williams. You might know him from Star Wars, or you might know him from his romantic romantic movies like Lady Sings the Blues with Diana Ross or Mahogany. And those are just classic romantic, oh my gosh, movies that just make your heart, make you swoon, because Billy D is just the ultimate romantic man. I want to share a real quick story. When we did this book, we did a book signing downtown Detroit that my mother hosted for us at this beautiful grand 2-story ballroom. We autographed 600 books in one night. It was amazing. We had a seafood buffet and ice sculptures and live music, and it was the party of the summer. It was and it was on my birthday. It was just phenomenal. But so we also had a book tour. We did events around mid-Michigan, the Midwest. We were in Chicago and other states, and we were going to the Borders bookstore in a limousine in downtown Detroit one night. And I love this story. We were in the limo and we were going down the main street, which is called Woodward Avenue. And the limousine stopped at a red light, and there was a bus stop right next to the vehicle. And Billy D. Williams rolled down the window, and there was a woman standing at the bus stop, and she looked and she recognized him, of course. And he said, how are you tonight, this evening? And she screamed. She's like, it's Billy D. And she shrieked and she like literally fell out. It was so hilarious. But he just had that romantic power. But he also is a brilliant man, deep into philosophy and also racial unity and harmony. Very progressive thinker, and he had some visions for the story that would propel people to think about race in a new way. So he said, let's set the book in Brazil, where I'd never been, but I set the book in Brazil, and it's a love story between a movie star and a woman who doesn't know what her racial mix is because she's never met her father. But she knows there's something in her mix. So in the course of the story, she discovers it, and it's just a powerful exploration of identity. So when I said my quote in my thesis, little did I know that my activism would take the form of writing books. And then organically, Catherine and I started our company, And we attracted diverse voices, people with against the odds success stories, people who are all about diversity, inclusion, and spreading messages of anti-racism, um, and unity for all, and people who've actually lived it and been activists in their fields. So whether it's law or corporate America, we've attracted the nonprofit sector, we've attracted prominent, successful, accomplished people who wanted to write books with us or publish books with us that showcase their pioneering, trailblazing work through a lifetime, a career in fields where they've shattered the black ceiling, the brown ceiling, the glass ceiling. So this mission has taken on a whole nother life of its own in terms of the activism of using the written and spoken word to cultivate human harmony. In addition, the message, be triumphant, not tragic. So my message to you tonight is, what is it about you that could potentially be tragic or that society might call tragic, that you're actually being triumphant in or can be triumphant in if you simply shift your mindset? What is it about yourself that you're considering as tragic, that you can claim triumph? Now, how do you do that? It's all in your mind, and there's a couple things you can apply. First, define what is that tragic. Is the tragic coming from the outer world, or is it coming from you? Next, identify what needs to be healed within yourself. What needs to be healed within yourself? Let me share an example. With me, it was this, oh, I never fit in. I want to fit in. I want to look like other people. I want to be like other. No, I reached a point as I grew up. I'm glad I don't fit in. I'm not a follower. I blaze my own trail. I pioneer my own ground. I do my own thing. I think on my own. I define who I am. I'm not being defined by other people. I say I'm a multiracial woman. I can say I'm Black. I can say I'm Native American. I'm Italian. I'm French. I'm English. I'm American. I'm a citizen of planet Earth. I'm a mixed race, multiracial, Black, Native American, English, French, Italian woman. All that. So I took what other people considered tragic and I call it triumphant because it has enabled me to create a body of work and a long list of authors in our company who are also exemplifying this message. So, what is it in you? So, you identify it, you ask, how can you heal it? And you can heal it by claiming your power. I own this. This is mine. And I can transform my own self perception to step into my power. Transform your pain into power. Because it's not easy. So please, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it at all. We all have whatever that tragic thing is, has definitely been a painful experience. So, for example, racism. We've all dealt with racism. And a lot of times when I was a teenager, I dealt with I would be dating somebody and something would happen and then they'd tell me they couldn't see me anymore because my mother's Black, or they'd come home and meet her and then I'd never hear from them again. Or one guy actually called and said, hey, Elizabeth, I heard your mom's a N-word, things like that. And then we all have a long list of stories we can tell, but the point is that it's not easy and you do deal with racism from both sides. But claiming the triumph, claiming the triumph. And no matter who you are, there will be people who don't like you for whatever reason. It has nothing to do with race. There's all kinds of things people find to divide and criticize. So my point is that whatever your point of pain is, that tragic thing, make it triumphant. You can do it. All you have to do is identify it, work on healing it, which is what I did through journaling, meditation, prayer, and shifting my mindset. As we were growing up, our mother said there will be people who don't like you because of you being mixed race, coming from an interracial family, and you just have to accept that. But then it's a gift because then you don't want someone who's that closed-minded in your circle anyway. So try to look at the positives of it and how can you find strength in it? And how can you also work to help rid the world of that kind of narrow thinking that would define your issue as tragic? So, another thing that you can do is just take courageous action in the direction of triumph. So, what does triumph look like for you? For me, it's finding power in the written word. In fact, when Dark Secret sold out in hardcover, we did a second printing. Our company did a second printing of the book. So I own this power. I own this message. I own this tragedy turned into triumph. I own it, and I'm proud of it. I celebrate it. So how can you take that tragedy, turn it triumph, and really, really amplify it? How can you make it into something, a business, a class, a book, a poem, a platform, social media, campaign, whatever it is? Own it, celebrate it, share it. There's so many examples that women especially are doing right now. One of them that comes to mind is body positivity, where women of all shapes and sizes are saying, this is me. I don't look like a fitness model. I'm fit, I'm healthy, but I do not wear a size 8 or 6 or 4 or 2, whatever. So, body positivity, loving your body in the size and shape that you naturally are, that is turning what some people would call tragic. Oh, look at her. She's never going to be super fit and look sleek like the ideal is for some people. And then turning that into triumph and saying, no, this is me, love me as I am. So, what is it about you that you may have once thought was tragic, or other people have tried to make you think is tragic, that you can rock with triumph? Another tool that you can do to explore this is journal. Journal about it, write about it, explore it, ask yourself why. Every time you answer why, ask why again, and just keep writing, keep pouring it out. And pretty soon, you're going to feel great because you're empowering yourself and you're exploring yourself. You're getting answers and you're stepping forward fearlessly and fiercely with this new understanding of self, this new mission to turn tragedy into triumph. So declare, I am triumphant, not tragic. That is an inspirational nugget in my whole life and career as a writer and as a speaker and as a multimedia journalist. I am triumphant, not tragic. So I hope this has inspired you to shift your thinking and identify a part of your life that you can transform into another pillar of power for you to boss up goddess. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I share things that you can do every day to live bigger, better, and bolder. Stay tuned later this week. I'm going to have some amazing, powerful women who are guests who can teach you so many things that will inspire you to action and new ways of thinking, prospering, and loving your life. So, thank you for watching, If you're finding value here, please subscribe. Just click that little red button there that says subscribe. Also, like, share, comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I said. Or what is your tragedy that's turned into triumph? Please drop me a comment and click the notification bell so you'll know every time I upload a new video or go live. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins. My new book is Boss Up Goddess, Start Living Your Effing Potential. It's for sale right now on twosisterswriting.com. Link is here in the show notes. And I want to thank you. So boss up, goddess, and remember, you have the power.